Hello again, gamers. Welcome back for another episode of Grokking Battletech. I'm the board game captain, and today I'm going to be telling you how to grok the Atlas. So I want to start by giving a big thank you to one of my regular viewers, Milcole73, who requested that I cover the Atlas in an episode of Grokking Battletech. So Milcole73, this episode is for you. Now the Atlas, this is a 100-ton beast loaded up with amazing amounts of firepower. It's slow, it's tough, it's powerful, it's got crazy armor, and there are a ton of versions of this going all the way back to the Star League era and all the way through to the latest of eras, all the way through the Dark Age and now in the Ill Clan. I mean, there's just tons of versions of the Atlas. The Atlas is generally considered to be tied for the most iconic mech of Battletech, along with the Timberwolf / Mad Cat. Both of those mechs are generally the ones most people think of when they think of the Battletech universe. In the case of the Atlas, it's all about that skull head that is the cockpit for the mech warrior. So I'm going to go through quite a few versions of the Atlas. I'm going to have to go through a lot of them fairly quickly just because there are so many and I do want to cover a lot because they do a lot of different things. Then I'm going to talk about one of my favorite versions because there are a lot that I like. But I'm going to talk about one of my favorite versions. I'm going to do a custom variant of one of my favorite versions. I'm going to recommend a mech warrior for one of my favorite versions, and then I'm going to give you a lance that I would build for that particular version. So let's start with what most people think of as the default version of the Atlas, the As7d. Now this is a Star League era version, but it is a Star League era version of the Atlas without any real advanced tech, any lost tech. So this is one that was also one of the more dominant versions of the Atlas throughout the Succession War time period. Now, like I say, this is generally considered to be the default version. You've got a walking speed of 3, a running of 5. This is pretty standard for big honking assault mechs. But it is fairly slow for mechs in general. But it makes up for that slow speed with armor and firepower. So in regard to the armor, we have a unbelievable 47 armor in the center torso, 32 on each side torso, 34 on each arm, 41 on each leg. And then on the rear, we have 14 on the center rear torso and 10 on each side. This is an incredible amount of armor. This thing is really hard to bring down if you are just standard chewing through all that armor, especially if you can't do concentrated hits with targeting computers or really big guns to punch holes through it. Even with big guns, that 47 armor on the center torso could take 2 hits from autocannon 20s and still have 7 armor left over. The As7d is an absolute tank. Now, it's got 20 single heat sinks. Of course, single heat sinks were the main ones used during the Succession War time period, but 20 single heat sinks is actually a lot. I mean, an absolutely large amount of heat sinking capacity for a mech that can only heat up 29 points from its weapons, even if it's firing, and that's with firing the 2 rear-mounted medium lasers. This is a very heat-efficient mech for the Star League and Succession War eras. It actually can fire most of its weapons and walk without overheating, which makes it incredibly scary because its weapons loadout is insane. So again, I mentioned we've got a couple of medium lasers on the rear of this thing. This is because you're fairly slow, you're walking towards your enemy, you're trying to get close, stuff is going to get behind you, but you can still hit it. You've got 2 medium lasers back there. Then you've got its main big gun. It's got an autocannon 20. This is the reason it wants to get close. 20 damage in the short range. You have to get all the way up to 3 hexes away for the short range. Medium range is 6 though, which is not bad. And there are ways to improve that if you can give it a mech warrior or a lance that would give it the sniper ability. Then medium range would only be a +1 instead opposed to a +2 difficulty for hitting things at medium range. But even at the +2 difficulty, that's not too bad. Next, we have an LRM 20. This is something to lay down covering fire with as you slowly march in. The idea with the Atlas is you slowly march in and you have firepower at every range. First, the LRM-20 to give some covering fire for your faster mechs that move up, and then when you get closer, you have the autocannon 20, and you have the rest of the weapons I'm about to mention, because it has an SRM-6 and 2 medium lasers. There is a magical place right in the middle, right around 6 hexes away, where everything has a fairly decent chance to hit the enemy. You're at medium range with the autocannon 20. You're at 1 point within minimum range of the LRM 20, so it's not too bad. You're at medium range with the SRM 6 and medium range with the medium lasers. And at that magic point, if you can get that 6 hexes away, you can tear apart an enemy mech in one turn of fire with this thing. A medium mech would be just like ripped in half if you manage to hit with a good number of these weapons. This is an absolutely phenomenal assault mech, and the one that all other assault mechs in the Succession War time period are judged by. This is one of my favorite assault mechs in the Succession War time period, and also one of my favorite versions of the Atlas. But let's move on. So the next one we're going to talk about is another Star League era version. This is the As7d Dc. So we maintain the 47 armor in the center torso, 32 on each side, of course the full 9 on the head, 34 on the arms, 41 on the legs, 14 on the rear center torso, 10 on each side. We've again got the 20 heat sinks. We again have the 3-5 movement. We've got an autocannon 20, an LRM 20, an SRM 6, and 2 medium lasers. We removed the 2 rear-facing medium lasers so that we could fit a command console. This one uses advanced tech, and this makes a phenomenal, if you're using advanced tech, a phenomenal command mech, because this thing is so hard to kill. Otherwise, yeah, as you can tell, it's very similar to the normal As7D. Now, the next mech we're going to talk about is the As7 Rs. This is another Star League era mech. We're back to intro level tech here, but this one is a little bit more of a long-range kind of brawler sniper sort of mech. We have much the same armor, 47 on the center, 32 on the side torsos, 34 on the arms, 41 on the legs, 10 on each rear side torso, 14 on the center torso, and 9 on the head. We remove a lot of the main armaments for this thing though, because we have an autocannon 10 instead of the autocannon 20, an LRM 15 instead of the LRM 20. We have an SRM 4 and 2 large lasers. This does have a lot of ammo, which is really nice, and it does have the 20 heat sinks, but generally speaking, this one feels very much, even with the large lasers, the loss of the autocannon 20 and the LRM 20 really feels like a bit of a downgrade. Don't get me wrong, I do actually like the large lasers on this thing. It just doesn't have the wow factor that the As7D does. Next, we're going to talk about a very odd version of the Atlas. This is one where the Atlas answers the question, what would happen if you turned an SRM carrier into a 100-ton mech? So you actually had a lot of armor to deal with that close-range fire that you're going to get back while firing massive amounts of SRM missiles off at your opponent. So this is the As7A. Now it comes with very good armor, like all of the Atlases do. 47 on the center torso, 32 on each side, 34 on the arms, 41 on the legs, 9 on the head, and on the rear we have the 10 and 14 respectively. Again, we have 20 heat sinks. We have 2 medium lasers, an autocannon 5, an LRM 10, and 5, count them, 5 SRM 6s. This is a ton of SRM 6 fire, and generally speaking, it also has the ammo to back it up, because this puppy is carrying 4 tons of SRM 6 ammo for those 5 SRM 6s. So this is a lot of firepower coming at your enemy. The problem with this version, though, is it is incredibly vulnerable to ammo crits. You are going to be trying to unload the SRM 6 ammo as fast as possible, but still, there's a ton of it in here, an absolute ludicrous amount, and if you get one of these full bin crit on it, it's going to blow the mech in half. So this is an interesting one and a fun one to try, but it's a little weird, and it definitely is a bit vulnerable, but because of it being a bit vulnerable, it's a bit cheaper. It's only 1,787 battle value for a 100-ton beast like this. Is actually not too bad. Next, we're going to move into the clan invasion era. So the first one I want to talk about here is the Atlas As7C. Now, this version of the Atlas is made to work with a C3 network. It has a C3 slave computer on board. We still have the single heat sinks, and we still have much the same on the armor. 47-32 on the front torso, 14-10 on the rear torso, 34 on the arms, 41 on the legs, 9 on the head, same as before. You have a single medium laser on the rear. This one swaps out the autocannon 20 for a Gauss rifle though. Combined with the LRM 20, this thing can stay back and really hit at long range. It also has an anti-missile system and 2 ER large lasers. Now, the 21 single heat sinks, not getting double heat sinks, does seem like a problem until you realize Gauss rifles only cause 1 point of heat. The Gauss rifles and the LRM 20 combined are going to make this really powerful at long range. The problem is if you fire both ER large lasers at the same time and nothing else, that's enough to overheat it. So you're probably going to only fire 1 ER large laser until you really need to pour on the fire on somebody. But overall, not actually that bad a mech, but would have been better, I think, if they dropped it down to a few less heat sinks, but gave it double heat sinks. I don't know why they didn't do that. But to fit all this stuff in, they did give it an extra light fusion engine, which means there are 3 fusion engine crit spots on each side torso. And while it does have case in the side torsos, if you were to take a big explosion and lose a side torso, it's the end of the game for this mech anyway. This is not a bad version, but it does definitely have some glaring weaknesses. Now, next I want to talk about the As7CM. Now, the As7CM also still is having single heat sinks only. This is still not double heat sinks. This is still a clan invasion mech though. This one, again, also has the extra light fusion engine, so you've still got those kind of issues with if you lose a side torso. It's got all the same armor as the previous versions, and it has the 2 medium pulse lasers in its rear. This is my favorite addition to this version. The medium pulse lasers are so much better when a fast mech gets around behind you than just standard medium lasers because of the reduction of 2 points of difficulty in hitting the target. It also has a Gauss rifle and LRM 20. It has a single ER large laser, an anti-missile system, and a C3 master computer. Now, the loss of the 1 ER large laser is not that big a deal to be able to fit the master computer in this mech because, again, firing both of those on the previous version was going to make you severely overheat. And this is a good place to put a master computer for a C3 network because this mech is pretty darn tough. Again, it does have the issues if you lose a side torso though. Next, I want to talk about one of my favorite of the clan invasion era versions, the As7 K. So the As7 K has 20 single heat sinks. It's got the same normal armor, 47 on the center torso, 32 on the sides, 34 on the arms, 47 on the legs, 9 on the head, and 14 and 10 on the rear torso, respectively. It is, again, still 3-5 movement like all of the Atlases are. It's got the 2 medium pulse lasers on the rear, which I really like. It's got a Gauss rifle and an LRM 20, which I really like. It's got 2 ER large lasers and an anti-missile system. So you're able to fit a little bit more in here since it does not have the either the C3 slave or master computers. This is a version for if you're not doing a C3 network but still want to get all that kind of firepower in it. Now, next we have the As7 Dc. So this version of the Atlas, again, 20 single heat sinks, same armor as the previous versions, 3-5 movement. We've got a single medium pulse laser on the rear. We lose 1 to make some room. We've got the Gauss rifle, the LRM 20, 2 ER large lasers, anti-missile system, and in the case of this mech, we have added in a command console. So again, really good mech for a command console. Now, the next clan invasion version we're going to talk about is the As7 S. Now, I really, really love the As7 S. The As7 S is one of my absolute favorite clan invasion era versions. And it really is a big callback to the original As7D from the Succession War version, but with upgraded tech. So the first reason I love the As7 S is this is the first of the clan invasion era versions of the Atlas I'm going to talk about that has double heat sinks. Thank goodness. It really needs it. So this one has 15 double heat sinks for a total of 30 heat sinking capacity. It's got the same armor as all the previous ones I've been talking about, 47, 32, 34 on the arms, 41 on the legs, 14 and 10 on the rear torsos, respectively, 9 on the head. Just as a quick reminder, 3-5 movement. We have 2 medium lasers on the rear. That is a bit of a downgrade from those medium pulse lasers, which I did really like. We have an autocannon 20, so this is what I'm talking about when we're getting back to the As7D kind of armament. We have an LRM 20, an SRM 6. On the rear, we have a pair of Streak SRM 2s to back up the medium lasers, and we have 2 medium lasers facing forward. Now, one of the really important things about this mech is while it does not have case systems, it also does not have an extra light engine. So the loss of a complete side torso will not kill this mech. It does have some issues with ammo, but it also has a lot of other crits filled where the ammos are, so that you have a lot of chances for the crit hits to hit something other than an ammo bin. And in a lot of cases, especially with like the autocannon 20 ammo, which only has 5 shots per bin, you can just rock that autocannon 20 and literally use up your ammo. Since most games of Battletech playing single lance on single lance will only be 10 turns or less anyway, you can just fire off those 10 shots of autocannon 20 armor, and by the time your enemy gets through the front armor, hopefully they don't get around behind you, but you do have some good rear weapons to deal with them if they do. But if by the time they get through the front armor, hopefully one of those ammo bins is empty and has even increased the number of places they could shoot you where it's not really going to do much. There is a third bin of 5 shots for the autocannon 20, by the way, in the right leg. I forgot to mention that. So you do actually have 15 rounds of ammo, but in the right leg, there are 4 other locations that they could possibly hit. So the chances are against them actually blowing the leg off. Generally speaking, I do find this to be a really awesome version of the Atlas, one of my favorites. Next, we have the As7 S2. Now, the As7 S2 is a version with the heavy Gauss rifle. Now, we have 16 double heat sinks to deal with the heat. We've got the same armor on the bunch of previous mechs we were talking about, 3-5 movement. We've got the heavy Gauss rifle that can do, again, 25 damage at close range, 20 damage at medium range. This thing punches holes in mechs, and its medium range is up to 13 hexes away. It's got a Guardian ECM suite, an LRM 15 with an Artemis 4, which I actually prefer to an LRM 20, and 2 ER large lasers. This is also one of my favorite versions of the Atlas. It does have a light fusion engine, but not an extra light fusion engine. So losing a side torso will not kill it. You need to lose a side torso and get a crit on the fusion engine on the center torso, so it's a little less vulnerable. One minor issue with this one is the fact that every time you fire the heavy Gauss, there is a chance to fall down. So if using this particular version, which I have used a lot myself, I highly recommend putting your custom mech warrior on that version for your lance and picking one with a really good piloting skill so it does not have a good chance of falling over. That'd be very key for it. The next version I'm going to talk about is the As7 S3. So again, same armor we've been looking at, but we have 14 double heat sinks for a total of 28 heat sinking capacity. Same movement they've all had, the 3-5 movement. This one has a small laser in the head. It's got a Gauss rifle. It's got a Guardian ECM suite, an LRM 15 with Artemis 4, 2 PPCs, a small laser in the right arm, a small laser in the left arm, and an anti-missile system. This mech, again, has a light fusion engine, so there are a couple of extra fusion crit slots on the side torsos, but not enough to kill it if you knock one off. This is a really good version of the Atlas. Those 2 PPCs, the LRM 15 with the Artemis 4 and the Gauss rifle, are absolutely brutal at range. Definitely a really good version. The next one we're going to talk about is the Atlas C. This version is an experimental mixed tech version. You get some clan technology in here. If you're into using clan mixed tech with some clan tech weapons, you've got a clan ultra autocannon 20 on here, 2 medium lasers on the rear, a clan LRM 20, which has no minimum range, which is amazing, a clan Streak SRM 6, and 2 intersphere medium lasers with 20 single heat sinks. This one really needed some double heat sinks, in my opinion, for all the heat being caused, but yeah, not bad, and generally speaking, actually really tough. It just has a regular fusion engine. You've got the standard kind of armor you're used to with an Atlas. Really, really hard one to bring down. And then there are many more versions of the Atlas. They go through into the Jihad and the Dark Ages and, you know, the later eras with all sorts of crazy combinations of different weapons, of multi-missile launchers, which I love versions with multi-missile launchers, with heavy PPCs, Gauss rifles, all sorts of different tech and weapons in here. But they all generally, the later versions do feel similar to a lot of the earlier versions. So I think I'm going to cut it there just because there's so many versions of the Atlas and I don't want this episode to get too long. Most of the later versions, like I said, do kind of feel similar to some of the earlier versions that I've already discussed with you here in this episode. So there were so many different versions of the Atlas that I could have chosen to talk about. I decided I'm going to talk about the As7S because it is one of my favorites. Again, it was really hard to choose. There's a lot of awesome versions of the Atlas that are really, really great. Just to remind you, the As7S has 2 medium lasers facing the rear, autocannon 20, LRM 20, SRM 6, 2 SRMs, 2 streaks facing the rear, and 2 medium lasers. It's got 15 double heat sinks, and this thing is an absolute beast in the clan invasion time period. Now, I'm going to give you my recommended mech warrior for this particular version of the Atlas, and that is Amika Kalu. Now, Amika Kalu normally pilots a Thunderbolt, but they just got a promotion and they're getting themselves an Atlas. Now, the reason I'm picking Amika Kalu is they're 100% their abilities, but it doesn't hurt the fact that their gunnery skill is a 2, which is incredibly accurate. They also have their piloting skill brought down to a 4, which is not bad, but that gunnery skill of a 2 is going to be incredibly great for making sure the autocannon 20 is going to hit on most occasions. Now, their abilities are 5-cost abilities, so this is a mech warrior you will be using if you're using a 5-cost mech warrior game. The first ability is Multitasker. Now, Multitasker allows you to split fire more economically. If you split fire, your secondary target in the front arc would get a +0 modifier, therefore no extra difficulty, and in the rear would only have a +1, making those medium lasers and streak SRM2s far more likely to hit in the rear. And also, if you're just, up close with someone and wanting to hit them with the autocannon 20 and the medium lasers, but wanting to fire your LRM 20s far off at something to help, back up mechs on the other side of the field and hit them with their enemy with an LRM 20 shot, you can do that too and have no extra difficulty, and that's great. In addition, this makes a fantastic command mech for your lance because it has tactical genius. When in command, you may re-roll initiative. The second roll stands, even if it is worse than the first. This is fantastic because this is very likely to be one of the toughest mechs in your lance to bring down, and therefore a great place to put a tactical genius. Next, we're going to talk about the custom version that was designed by my own personal mech design firm, KIWF, named after the last initials of its 4 founding members, but affectionately nicknamed Kill It With Fire by its fans. This is a version of the version of the Atlas that I'm going to be making a lance for, which again is the As7S that I just spoke about. And this is the As7 KIWF. So what did I do with this? So I wanted to make an upgraded version of the As7S that was really more powerful at just about all ranges is the idea here. So what I did was, first off, I upgraded the 2 medium lasers that face the rear to medium pulse lasers. And doing so, I also had to remove the rear streak SRM2s, but I do feel like a pair of medium pulse lasers being more likely to hit and a little bit more powerful than regular medium lasers totally make up for that. In the front, we wind up with a grand total of 5 medium lasers for a lot of just little bits of damage all over the place in the front, paired up with the normal autocannon 20 that this mech comes with. So when you get in close, you hit with the autocannon 20 and you fire off a bunch of medium lasers to find the holes that the autocannon 20 makes. Now, I swapped out the SRM 6 and the LRM 20 for a pair of multi-missile launcher 9s. And then I gave it 2 tons of ammo for SRM ammo and 1 ton for LRM ammo. So you have a bit of ammo with the LRMs, you have 13 shots for firing when you're at long range, but you have 22 shots for firing at close range, which I think is going to be the thing you're going to want to do more of, because SRM shots coming out in 9 missile clusters is amazing and would make this mech able to really properly use all of its weapons when it gets into point blank range, because unlike the LRMs, the multi-missile launchers will not have to succumb to a minimum range when they're firing their SRM missiles off. So there you have it. That is my own custom version. Now let's talk about a lance I would make for the As7 S. So I decided I was going to go with the Battle Lance. Now, the Battle Lance is great because it gives you 6 rerolls that you can spend throughout the game. Now, again, we're taking the As7S with Amika Kalu, which means that they have a gunnery skill of 2, but if you're firing at medium range, Now it goes from a 2 to a 4 to hit. If your enemy is moving fairly quickly, it might go as high as a 7 or 8 or even 9. Plus, if you walked, that could be another point. It can very quickly become very difficult to hit your target. So getting re-rolls, especially for when it's somewhere around the middle, like a 6 to an 8 to hit, somewhere around there, a 6, a 7, or an 8. Getting to re-roll it if you miss can be very, very key and very important to making sure that autocannon 20 is connecting where you want it to connect. Now, the Battle Lance requires that 50% of the Battle Lance must be of the heavyweight class 60 tons or greater, and at least 3 units in the formation must also possess any combination of brawler, sniper, or skirmisher. So first off, the Atlas is a juggernaut, so it does not fit those requirements of the brawler, sniper, and skirmisher, but it does fit 60 tons or greater. So I have one mech that is 60 tons or greater, and I have a second one in the Lance, and all 3 of the other mechs in the Lance are either brawlers, snipers, or skirmishers, so I can get those 6 rerolls. Now, the second mech to back up the Atlas is a nice big heavy mech to give some medium to long range fire support and can even do some firepower when it gets in close as well. This is the Dragonfire Dgr4f. Now, this is a 75-ton beast with a 4/6 movement, so it's actually not too bad on the speed for such a heavy mech. It has 38 armor on the center torso, 25 on each side, 24 on the arms, 32 in the legs, and 8 in the center rear torso, 6 in each side rear torso. It also has 10 double heat sinks for a really good amount of heat sinking capacity, and it comes armed with a Gauss rifle, an LB-10X autocannon, a medium pulse laser in the left torso, a Guardian ECM suite, a medium pulse laser in the head, and an ER large laser. So as you see, you've got a lot of long-range firepower to back up the Atlas with the ER large laser, the Gauss rifle, and the LB-10X, but then you've got a couple of medium pulse lasers for if things get a little too close. This also fits with the same kind of combat doctrine that the Atlas As7S goes with, in that it has weapons for all ranges to do all sorts of things, which is really, really awesome. Next, we have the Wraith Tr1. Now, this is a 55-ton mech that moves like a scout. It's got a movement of 7, 11, 7. 7 jumping, 11 running. Crazy fast, very difficult to hit, but it's got armor like a medium because we've got 23 armor on the center torso. We have 18 on each side torso, 14 on each arm, 20 on each leg, and 7 and 5 on the rear torsos respectively. It is armed as an interceptor with a large pulse laser and 2 medium pulse lasers, making it very likely to hit its target even when jumping. This is the sort of mech you run in, you harass, you jump from forest to forest or behind half hills, and you unload on people's rear and really destabilize your opponent's line. Because they never know where the Wraith is going to come down. This is a really great interceptor mech. It's also, as an interceptor mech, fantastic at hunting down little light mechs that are trying to get behind you, things like locusts, stingers, wasps, etc. Because those 2 medium pulse lasers and that large pulse laser are generally enough to rip those apart, though generally you'll have to walk or run when dealing with them rather than jump, so you can bring down your difficulty to hit a little more, because they do add a lot of extra difficulty to hit them as a target. And finally, as our final mech in the group, we have an Icarus II ICR-1S. This is a 40-ton brawler. It's got a movement of 464, so again, still pretty maneuverable. We've got 6 running, 4 jumping. We have armor 15 on the center torso, 14 on the sides, 10 on the arms, 15 on the legs, 6 on each rear torso section. So this one is something you're going to have to play a little bit more finessey with, have to be a little more careful, but it makes a really decent medium range brawler because it has 10 single heat sinks and it comes with an autocannon 10, 2 medium lasers, and a small laser. So when you don't want to get too close to someone, you can stay at a fairly decent range and fire off with the autocannon 10 and maybe even the medium lasers. And then when you need to, if you want to close in with someone and jump behind them, you can, and you can also hit them with those medium lasers and the small laser at point blank range to peel off some rear armor. This makes a really decent 4th mech for this Lance to just be sort of a jack of all trades and go where you need it to kind of put out fires, along with the Wraith, really. So there you have it. That is my episode of Grokking Battletech for the Atlas. One of the mechs that probably at least needs an episode because everybody has played with an Atlas at some point. These things are just beasts. They have tons of armor, they're very durable, and they have loads of weapons. They slowly, inevitably walk towards you, laying down fire at every range. And that is why the Atlas is awesome. But yeah, like I said, while I did choose the As7S to put a mech warrior in and pick for this lance, there are so many versions of this mech in all time periods that are so awesome. Let me know in the comments down below, what is your favorite version of the Atlas? Because it's really hard for me to choose because there's so many I like. In addition, if you have a request for another mech you'd like to see me cover, feel free to comment down below, though do know that I am trying to get through most of the mechs in the earlier time periods. Anything from the Star League era, Succession War era, Clan Invasion era, or Civil War era before moving on, because those are generally my favorite time periods to play in. So do try to stick to mechs from the earlier time periods. And if you enjoyed this episode of Grokking Battletech and you'd like to see me do more like it, be sure to give it a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.